solutions are out there. It's our problem to find them. And, also in real estate, it takes a team, right? It takes an orchestra of professionals to do anything in real estate. It takes an orchestra of professionals to do anything in business, right? And there's a lot of moving pieces with a building, right? And from dirt through data all the way through. And when everybody's kind of working in sync, you really can kind of make some impact. And if we can add tools to help each individual or each part of that stack, then the whole goal is to make the healthy building. And I'm starting to compare real estate to the movie industry, right? You're creating $1 billion asset in a course of 6 to 9 months, or an asset, an LP within 6 to 9 months. And within 1 year, you could be making potentially $1 billion in revenue. Think about how many people need to come together from all different skill sets, all different trades, all different mindsets to produce that one piece of art, movie, film. For us, the product is the building. And it takes so many, and everybody has in their careers a different mindset, a different skill set, a different value to what they're doing, not just what their job is. And that's what's, I think, been exciting post-COVID, that people are not only seeing what's best to their behavior of life, but I think we have a responsibility with buildings. And that's what I think these tool sets are helping us delve in a little bit more to find those solutions.
Tell people where you started, how you got here, because you are not from this industry originally, and you've worn many hats, learned a whole hell of a lot before getting to this conversation right now. So tell everybody, bring them back to who you are, what's your context for being here and being so curious about this industry?
I'll say it starts back in, I was that kid in elementary school while you were out in recess. I was doing the bulletin boards with the teachers. I was the art kid.
That's awesome.
But I also was very influenced from my parents. My father was an interior designer that got into sales, that got into the industry through that route. My mother being a teacher. Right? Even my brother being a rabbi. There's a lot of learning and listening and engagement with that. But that was my calling. I knew that I was that art kid, and I was on track to be an architect and design and drawing. And I was very fortunate, a lot of mentors and a lot of great teachers in the public school system in Long Island saw that, right? Right? That's what's great about teaching, right? They can lean into the talent, but then they see the passion that matches with that. And I had a lot of amazing teachers that saw that, but also challenged and me to grow, not just the skill sets, but also working with people and understanding how to be that team. And I was on track to be an architect. And then I, designed my first office building when I was 15 years old. I made a model of my high school with a group, and we gave it to the class. That was another great project. We got to work collaboration. And then my senior year, a teacher asked me to design a radar detector or a lifeguard stand. And I started to get understand and say, what's this? And that brought me to the world of industrial design. And that's what I went to school. I went to the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Industrial Design, and had some amazing teachers. And they taught me how to, art school didn't teach me how to design, they taught me how to think and how to create a process. And I had a great, did really well there, graduate top of the class, got nice awards, represented our school in senior year and did presentations. And it was unbelievable. And those even started learning how to craft a presentation. Right, get in front and skill sets of talking to 400 people.
That's
it was huge. And
never replace that kind of confidence once you just kind of have to do it and start at somewhere, even though it's nerve-wracking and terrifying to some extent. But once you do it and somebody pushes you, it's an invaluable skill.
And it also correlates with my inherent, when I say curiosity and awareness, but my inherent love of research and being prepared. And
this is what I want to talk about today, because one of the things that I love about you, and really how I think, we connected back when you were a CMO, I want to say Colliers?
I was at Avis and Young at the time, and that I was one of the Avis and Young.
Avis and Young, that's right. And we were connecting as colleagues, but over the years we've really become friends. And one of the reasons that I think we've stayed in touch and why we talk all the time and we can spend hours and hours just, whether it's walking around the neighborhood or, getting on a phone call, is because of the way that you think and it's very unique. It's very special. And I always think of you as somebody who thinks big. And because I'm somebody who doesn't work in a particular silo of the industry, I don't, do one thing or the other. I get to see the industry from a kind of this punched out bird's eye view, and I get to see all the little parts and pieces, very similar to yourself. I think we share a very unique understanding of how things work, but also kind of this ambitious perspective of what could be. And so I think this is one of the most unique things about you. And I want to get into it a little bit more, because curiosity is not something that everyone has, but curiosity coupled with research is a different kind of thing altogether. So I would love for you to share just like a little bit about whether it's the process of how you learned to think, and maybe that was the stepping stone to, grow into this way you think now, or just some of the ways that you keep yourself hungry for knowledge, excited about the industry, because, for a lot of people it fades, but not you. Not you. Every time we talk, you're excited about this next thing, and it's very special. Can you talk about it?
Yeah, and I am very excited about where we are in real estate and where things are going forward.
There's never been a time that I haven't heard you be excited. So
no, I think that a lot of it starts with the mindset, and I think we've all had this conversation. A lot of that was fast tracked out of COVID, right? And that's the behavior. And what I've talked to you about, I call March 30th, 2020 BC, right before COVID. Right.
Yeah.
And now we've crossed that hump and we're after it. And we know that a percentage of those models, of that behavior, of that life is, of course, going to continue on and thrive. But now what else? And that a lot was also through the training in art school and design school. Right. I had a teacher, and his phrase was go beyond the beyond. And that's kind of where go beyond the beyond. And what does that mean? And you can also understand that in what I say, they taught me to think. They taught us how to create a process for yourself to do that thinking. And that's what I formulated over the years. And that came out of college. And I call it RADI, R-A-D-I, research, analyzation, design, and implementation. And through those four channels, to me, I can come up with any solution, right? Also being part of a team. But it also takes a lot of research and understanding. Even when we've talked before, I say start with strategy. Right? What's the inherent problem? What's the need? What's the issue? The initiative? Really hear all the stakeholders and work from there. But that started again back, in high school and just as an artist, if you would think, right? Wanting to inherently better yourself. And being an artist is also a very internal thing, right? You're a thinker, a deep thinker, thinking a lot, but then research and understanding. And that started early on, even when I wanted to understand the world I was going into. I even started researching the trades, right? What does an art director mean? To see what skill sets they need. Oh, I need to learn that, right? And did that my entire career, right? To understand, we have titles. What does that mean? As I'm growing the field in school, trying to, figure out what my career is and everything flowing at the same time. And trying to learn a really big industry. I didn't know I was going to go into real estate, right? But real estate brought everything together for me. And that was really exciting. It starts with that process and, finding your subject, right? Understanding that subject. And, I read a lot. I research a lot. Part of my process in the morning is taking a lot in. And because of if we go back to real estate, because of the role that I had, I worked for the company, right? So I call it the front of the jersey, and I had to market the company. And I took the same principles of marketing, international companies and those same principles and brought them to every service line. Right. And then the integrated marketing. And then I talked about the hub and spoke. I'm learning from every one of my clients, which is essentially my colleagues. Right. And whether you're working with a debt equity group, or you're working with a landlord group, or you're working with an evaluation group, tenant rep, you're bringing those principles to them. You're inherently learning. Then, now you're making a business plan. Let's do a marketing plan, right? How you creating your service line? How do we expose that more? You have juniors, top down, bottom approach. It was also the curiosity and awareness was also wanting to be part and delve in And even when it comes to technology and when, prop tech started, if you would, again, another medium, another tool of the trade. And I took on that role to start to delve in, meet with those companies. And you're talking about 2014,
Right.
2010. I mean, a long
Yeah.
time ago, right?
Yeah.
And what was even just bringing Apple computers into real estate, right? InDesign, those were different tools of the trade that I started to bring in, or just designers would bring in, obviously, but those became those tool sets, and then those become automatic, right? And then you have VR and AR and XR, and it's just another tool of the trade, right? So so part of your, the thinking, but it's really a lot of understanding the industry, right? Understanding what's happening around in the world as well, what's happening with technology, what's happening on the industries, going to events, going to podcasts, going to webinars, not being the best thing I always say is being the only person in real estate in the room. Right. And now you're learning from wherever you are, whatever industry you're around. And there's a lot to take in on that. And I think part of my thought process, my mindset is to continually learn and say, wait a second, how could that be applied here? How could that be applied here? And one of the fortunate educations I got in the beginning was working for a tenant rep firm. And working for a tenant rep firm with amazing people, at the end of the day, taught me how to read between the lines and how to find opportunity or how to see opportunity or put things together. And maybe for me, that's not a transaction or a deal, but maybe those are teams or different type of technologies that can go service a building, or a different way of collecting data. Now that data is now very prevalent in those actionable items, right?
Right.
Or what residential and those behaviors now. So a lot of just being part of teams, part of the mix, if you will. But then that personal process that I told you, research, analyzation, design, implementation. And because I'm a designer, and I feel I can, and the storyteller, be able to do the output as much as the strategy, but then it's always constantly building and then bringing things together. Right. And that could be, talk about automation or AI, or wherever the industry is going or wherever the industry needs to go. And it's just being part of that value add. And sometimes I see things that maybe has a value here, but you know what? That can have another X value here. And, and I'm a big believer in commas. 1 + 1 = 3, right? Additive. And let's explore, go beyond the beyond. And then let's see what makes sense realistic. And then maybe that brought us 3 new ideas that we never even could ideate because we didn't go on that exploration. And I think that's part of the process. Visioning sessions, architects do it in charrettes, right? Those type of mindsets. And I think that's the beauty of real estate when we talked about that orchestra and bring all different mindsets and different skill sets. And everybody has a different understanding and a different background. And my job, hopefully, is to listen, right? And participate in the strategy through, my process.
Yep. And that's, for me, healthy. Like, that's what healthy means, is really being able to see a bigger picture, bring ideas from things that you're learning, because you're not stagnant as an individual. You're hungrier for information. So when you're showing up to that meeting and you're responsible for bringing everyone together and being that nucleus, you're equipped with probably more information than anyone. It doesn't mean that you are, the broker and the engineer and the developer and all these things, but you have an understanding generally, and then you have a deep understanding of technology, what's possible. You in particular have an understanding of marketing and brokerage, and probably a lot of those other ones that I just talked about, because you're a unique individual. But I think that one of the things that I think could have our industry at its healthiest, if you will, which is what we're talking about in this podcast, is punching out thinking beyond just the scope of what our daily function is, because it's a really easy way to become stagnant and potentially become kind of down on the industry and the state of what's happening and the opportunities. When you take a step back and you start learning about technology as a tool, technology as a skill set to elevate and enhance what we can do as human beings. When you are able to take a step back from your function and see a bigger picture, recognize the ecosystem, you can understand that, yes, my value is here, but I also may bring value here and here, just like you're saying. So I think this is probably one of the most important things that anybody could do in our industry, and just generally as a human being, no matter what industry, is create that hunger for learning. Continue to figure out how you can have curiosity and use that curiosity to improve on whether it's your job function or your life outside of work, something that you're passionate about. So I think that you're one of the people who really does stay on top of what's new, what's coming, and like myself, we get to absorb a lot of information about technology. And so in a way, we live in the future, but the future is also now in 2024 kind of in our laps with the introduction of AI in a more kind of consumer-facing way, because AI has been around for a long time, but in a consumer-facing way, in a way that's actually usable and tangible for our jobs, our work, and also in a way to help us think bigger and really ideate on what's possible, stuff we may not have ever even thought. So I think that there is tremendous opportunity with this new technology, but I also think that there's a lot of fear and a lot of navigating how we can blend the humanity that it takes to build great buildings and workplaces and, residential buildings and universities and hospitals and all the retail and all the hotels and everything that we get to build as this industry, blending that humanity with this new kind of significant digital layer to life that, whether we like it or not, is here, it exists. So I would love to just hear a little bit about, because we get to talk about this and I get to have a lot of fun talking to you about this all the time, but what I would love for you to share with the audience, like just some of your take on how that blending is happening already and how you think it could be like really effectively blended.
So it's really interesting because the human aspect of technology is so much greater now. And I think that's exciting.
What do you mean by that?
Because I follow behavior. And I think we can all look to ourselves, right? Of what we do in the morning, what our processes of everything, right? Daily life, and wake up in the morning, go grab a cup of coffee, commute to work, go to work, things like that. And we're now in a new behavior era, right? And that 2020 did that for us. And now you're thinking about, if I bring it to the relationship of real estate, right? Work from home, residential, come to the office. What does that mean? I talk a lot about how the building is a product, a tenant is a consumer. How could we bridge those gaps together? And technology, I've always believed, is that game changer, right? That always equilibrium between the past and the future, right? And I think now that, behavior, where they say it takes 4 to 6 months until it becomes kind of integrated, and technology can assist with that, right? There's also a great meme I saw. I don't want AI to do my my art and my my innovation. I want it to do my writing or do my laundry or things like that.
Right. So I wanted to clean my house and do my laundry.
And we really have technology in the palm of our hands, right? This has also been a game changer. Tenant apps, right? Integration here. What is that? To give information, to make some of the processes to be easier. But then, it's a conduit to everything, to any integration. And so if I can start to use an app to get my cup of coffee, to help me understand wayfinding to get to the office if I need to go to the office, or how could technology now help my business, right? How can technology help retail? We talk about dwell time. We talk about shrinkage, right? We talk about a lot of that. Maybe that's not more the human aspect, but that's solving a human aspect problem, right? Of stealing. And what does that turn into to stores that maybe aren't as designed as well as we would like them to be now? And then it gives a different behavior, a user who comes into a store, sees everything on the lock and key, right? That makes an impression to them. That could be, and the way I think, that could be everything from branding, right, to the revenue that store could be making, to saying, could we build a better store, right? And so I think human is really what drives how we use technology. So an AI, and more than AI, AI is one component, and then you have the data. And I always say you collect data to make actionable items, and what actual items could those make? And then if you're doing a new trend here or using integrating technology here, how does that change the next part of the process to the next part of the, so technology, iPhones and all of that has given us a co-pilot of life, right? There's so many technologies integrated into that. And I think that is what could make the integration with that with human, to me, is really exciting, right? I never thought with the Apple headset that I would see people walking on the street with that. It didn't even cross my mind. And then I saw that and I said, that's pretty cool. And then what's that helping them with? Right. And then I have the Ray-Ban glasses that I have, and I've used that as a tool set for myself, right? Whether it's just taking nice pictures for my blog, my Pocket of Wonderful, or just using it for research, saying, you know what, this is at a cool store. I don't really want everyone to know I'm filming it, and I can go like this, and now I have something. Technology did that. Or what could technology help me solve a problem that I couldn't have before, or I couldn't do before? Could it give me another area of experience, right? I love working with landlords and owners and developers about looking at empty space in their asset class and saying, could we find a new area of revenue, but mostly could we create a new experience? And the experience in everything we're doing is a benefit to the tenant, the consumer, to us, to the human, right? A building is just a physical, it's four walls. It's a physical building, right? So how we develop the building, or the systems we put in place, that's going to affect the human. And then the relationship, that's always going to evolve. And I get excited by that, because I do think about now the architects who get the design, right? The lighting designers who get design, just thinking about a conference room. How do we integrate technology into that? And then what does a building look like now? Right? I'm amazed by that. Architecture as an expiration date. What does that mean for tomorrow? Right? And I can go on, right? To me, a building is four walls, right? An office is a definition, right? And I have the benefit of working over different asset classes, right?
Yes.
I look at residential to commercial. We spent a lot of time trying to bring residential into commercial. Now it seems we're trying to bring commercial into residential, and those blends. You can even say that a little bit with industrial, because we're looking at last mile, first mile, quickest mile, and now the basement spaces of your retail store or even your residential building could be used in a different manner. Those inherent, real estate is the foundation of business, of life, Maslow's law, right? There's so much inherent possibilities and value that real estate brings, no matter what it is, right? You want to be you want to be a musician, you need a place to go play, right? You want to be an artist, you want a place to paint.
Yeah.
And I think that the real estate industry, the exciting time now, that there's more definitions than just office or retail or industrial. There's so much more blending. That to me is exciting. I used to own musician rehearsal studios. I read about a band who took a space in a mall. That's brilliant to me, right? That's brilliant, right? They have a space that's great. It activates the space. There's a value for the patrons walking by. They have a place they can sell their merchandise, to clothes. They have a place they can practice. They have a place they can do lessons. They just created an integrated business off of real estate, right? And you integrate technology into that. That's exciting. I think of the tenant apps, right? I think we're at 1.0 with tenant apps. Because now soon, it's going to pay your bills and things of that. But if you look at some studies, the people, let's say residential, there's certain things they still want a human for, and there's certain things that they do want technology for. I'm not sure if we got it right yet. Right?
Yeah.
So what could be automated, digital services, things like that. But when you have a problem with your bill, you might want to talk to somebody. So that's where the human behavior integrated with technology, that's where I think, and now the technology is so far advanced, software is much more advanced than hardware, it gives us the opportunity to think different. And I'll go back to my design school. I had a great teacher, Cam Rashid. And I can tell you one lesson that we had that was part of the lexicon of thinking. He asked somebody to go up and draw a chair. And they went like this, and they went like that. That's a chair. And then he did this. He did a half circle. He goes, your butt sits there. Isn't that a chair too? So it's just, right, thinking. What could be done this way might be able to be done this way. What could be done this way?
Yeah.
And then human interaction with that, right? And you have AR right now, wayfinding, right? How does that help the daily life?
Can you
So
explain a little bit about, like, because you have a unique perspective when it comes to some of these mixed reality tools. Can you explain how that even would integrate? Because I know we've been talking about that for a long time, but I don't think people totally have a grasp on how that would be a tool to iterate.
like AR, VR, XR, right?
Yeah.
If you take away the trend lines that we've had over the past year at the metaverse and all of that, and just look at it as a technology tool set, right? I think there's so many possibilities. I wanted to redesign leasing signs using QR codes and AR. We did that, right? Think about what the value of a leasing sign is, right? For lease, you're getting information. But what if I can show you what the space might be able to look like on the inside? What if the broker can be there inside the window and start to communicate with you? What if that information just gave you more data to be able to put into your sales funnel? We worked on a project where an architect couldn't solve a design. They were trying to dissolve a design problem, and the solution wasn't confirmed just through a rendering, right? How do you do that? So we went from BM to VR. So the landlord can literally stand in the middle of his lobby and look around times of the day, inputting the materials, inputting the lighting, the Kelvin, everything. Even during the design process, the architect didn't like the way the sunlight that we modeled went off the turnstile and created a shadow. So we changed it to matte. At the end of the day, that could save almost $500,000 in design changes. Technology, it's all about storytelling, right? And story not just to make content, story to communicate a decision. And if these tools can help with that process, make those decisions quicker, work through failures or work through decisions that much quicker, iterate in VR, from the construction process, understand the data, that it's a hockey puck, the same data that you might use, or technology on the construction process that builds through the life cycle all the way to now the tenant move in. All that data could be interpolated for an actionable item, whether it's something to benefit the tenant, maybe something to benefit the experience of the asset, or maybe that could help you with your next thesis of where to buy the next building. So I think it becomes, if you just take away I try to simplify it. It's a tool, right? It's a tool that can achieve a result. And if you understand how to use that for your process, maybe that can go a little bit beyond the beyond, maybe give you 2 or 3 ideas that maybe you didn't even iterate, but then you can blend that into your strategies. And ideas and execution need to go hand in hand, but you can have an idea today. You might not need it for tomorrow. And maybe those AI and those tool sets can help you bring out those ideas and then find an opportunity to execute on it. And that's part of the concept of learning and blending and just understanding what the problem is and that's a solution. And it's not about starting with AR and XR. It's about, like I said, starting with the strategy. You talk about wayfinding, right? One of the missions we're doing now is really working with mall operators, right? To show them how they can bring these technologies into the physical space, blending the digital to the physical, right? Things that you've seen for retail, or what you see on TikTok or what you see on Snapchat. That content's created, and that's a lot of what I just call repurposing, and that's marketing. You create something and you take them on a 360 journey. Yeah. Well, if we created something that was successful on AR, that now you can only get through the phone, maybe a laptop or an iPad, what if I could bring that to the physical store and now bring those integrations, right? So something that maybe you did try on, through the phone, maybe as a gimmick, or now a retailer starting to integrate that. Wait a second, I can go to a store and do the same thing. So that's a greater experience, right? AR could be the wayfinding, right? You think about loyalty rewards and those things that part of the strategy of marketing in malls or in shopping centers, right? How do you integrate that? I met with Times Square Alliance. We just talked about a great strategy for Times Square. I put a roof over the bow tie. You're a mall. And now what's the integrated marketing for that? It's the same processes. Can I recreate Times Square in VR so that when someone's thinking about coming to Times Square, they can already kind of feel like they went through it. Maybe we did a partnership with hotels.com. So when people are going through that part of the process, which is, I know we talk a lot about wellness, which becomes stressful, right? Maybe there's pieces of
Right.
tools of technology that maybe volumetric that knows how much clothes you're putting into your suitcase. So now you know that it's going to be weighed right, right? Or maybe that same app could take you on the next part of the journey. So
Right.
that's what I get excited about. It's not just the technology itself, right? It's bringing those stakeholders and the mindsets and the initiatives together and then saying, how could we add that or how could that be part of the process or the solution? And, where I started doing stuff with print brochures, right? Why wouldn't you add a QR code now? Right? Why wouldn't I put AR where the video can pop up and show you? So, and that's what I get excited about doing research outside of our industry, because this is happening in sports and entertainment and hospitality.
Really.
I get a lot of my research, a lot of my trends, a lot of technology, a lot of other ideas, more so as much outside of our industry events than I do inside. And I think that's where you have to, the curiosity, awareness, the inherent to learn, more hours in the quiver, and then how could you bring that all together and then be that kind of change agent and that conduit to be part of the team to say, if we're doing it this way and this way, we could do it this way and this way, and the result could be X, Y, and Z. So if we start with the outcomes that we're looking for, maybe we go backwards and then figure out what are the technologies, the processes, and then what is human to technology. And I'll give a great example in residential. You can create all the technology in the world for residential, and they really have some amazing technology. But at the end of the day, if I brought all that technology to bring someone to the building, to go on a tour, and that property manager is not at the building to shake their hand, say hello because they're on another tour, did all that technology really matter? And
Right.
that's where the human interaction comes in and playing that together, right? During COVID, you can send all the robots in the world to go through an apartment and do all the looks and everything there, but you can't turn the water on. You can't
Correct.
open
The
up.
virtual scan, the virtual tour type of thing you're talking about, right? But
So,
you can't turn the water or see potentially the light of day and the time that you showed up,
right.
or what the view looks like at night with the lights, and maybe it looks better. Who knows?
But also our industry is also about relationships and human
Yeah.
interaction and trust-based selling and
Yeah.
all of that. So there has to be that blend. And if we can give stakeholders, employee, anybody, just another tool set to help them do their job better, or not even better, quicker, more efficient, or let some menial task, or not menial tasks, but tasks that once we had to do manually, now maybe we can run automated. Now we can take our skill sets, our mindset, and now maybe work on something else. And I do believe that is what is going to propel human careers. I think we're going to be able to excel ourselves because technology can help us with the tasks at hand of our career. And then we can excel more. Same example I said, like with the truck drivers. I think it's amazing what they can navigate from their 30-year history of understanding the
Talk
roads of
about this
America.
from the top, because I don't know if we were rolling yet. So just give that example.
We talked about just in the beginning about, when, autonomous cars, right? And we're still in the debate about, autonomous cars. But I used to travel the country doing entertainment, all of crisscrossing the country. And this is years ago, where I can tell you it was 3 a.m. and I remember saying to myself, I wish there was just like my AFX. I wish there was a groove in the road where I can just hit a button and something comes out the bottom of my car. And now I really don't have to drive and it's taking me on a track.
Wow.
Well, fast forward today, we have autonomous cars,
Yeah.
right? And then, what's the next level of autonomous cars and charging? Is it the stations? Right? Or is it the road, the yellow markers and the road markers on a road are now electrified, and literally as you're driving over it, your car is getting charged as you
Right.
go. Those are the possibilities that I think technology can integrate with the human behavior and
Right.
make easier things easy, harder things less hard, and then the possibilities of tomorrow.
You said something which I think is really important. A couple topics ago, but I want to bring it back because I really like that you talked about this, which is looking at things like TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram and social media, because I think that in our industry, there's so much at stake and there's such long investments from decision to implementation and actually seeing a building or a space come to life. And so I think we have come up with processes that work, and we haven't innovated so much on those processes. We've stayed kind of baseline, and there certainly has been innovation. I don't want to take away from that. But and those processes work, and that's why we've been doing things the way we've been doing things for as long as we have. But I think there's a fearlessness from a handful of individuals like yourself that it takes to really look beyond what is and see what is the consumer of our product, the building or space, what do they need, what is important to them, how are they maneuvering in life, and you learn about that from TikTok, which is got the most users of any social media platform that exists. You learn from those behavioral trends, from even silly trends that are, trends, sounds, things that are being used on these social apps in troves. You learn so much. So I think that our industry, most of us are not, 18 and under, maybe utilizing TikTok in the way that the majority of the users are. But we can learn and understand that in 5 years, the building that we're talking about right now, those are the users. That's the consumer, that's our client.
100%. And I think I think TikTok, Instagram, are amazing tools on how you want to use it. When I talked about research, education, constantly learning, my morning process, I'm on TikTok all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not there because I want to learn the next dance.
You're not doing the dances? Come on.
No,
I was pulling that link to the episode. I thought, people would like to see.
We're gonna do a real estate dance, but for your audience, you know what I really want to do? We're gonna bring back the architect fashion show, and that'll be a whole nother thing.
Ooh.
But history. I love real estate, and when you're really a student of real estate, you learn, right? And you know what? I can even tell you, the history of technology was Knoll. Knoll could design the ultimate office space. Right? And if you really look at that history, what it was designed around, the piece of technology, or something now that's the size of your phone used to take up a whole wall, right? Yeah. With someone there with a desk. Now, everything that took up 20,000 square feet or 10, whatever the size is, not the whole office, but that piece of technology, those tape, all be on a phone. Right?
You're talking about, of course, like the original computers and things like that, right? Having data rooms and computer rooms, right? Whole rooms to house these machines, right?
I don't think it'll be surprised to anyone that I enjoy watching Mad Men, right?
That show,
right?
I've rewatched it too many times to even count.
Look where they're at right now in part of the series where now the new IBM computer came in.
Yes.
Right? Now, what could that do for what was interesting? What could that do for the creative? What could that do for the copyright? And what could that do for business development when they market to their company that we have the latest piece of technology that can help you? So those inherent value. I learned AI on TikTok. Yeah, I learned AI on TikTok. And also, we've also had the conversation where the next Mark Zuckerberg, right? The next Facebook that might be in college now, might be in high school. You can start a business at any age, and I could talk about that all day long. And I think that's exciting too, because the tool sets are there, and it's there for anyone to lean in that wants to do something. But TikTok was a great education for me, because I first didn't want to go into understanding what real estate's teaching about AI. I wanted to understand what the community, what Gen Z, how they're using, how they're seeing this tool sets. I spent a lot of time, the algorithms, even just on my own, can I manipulate them? What does that mean? And I started playing with that and then as subjects that I wanted to learn, you go into the search. And if I wanted everything about AI, how to use AI as a tool set, I started typing those in, and I know that they're going to start to come up. My biggest fear about TikTok leaving is not that, that medium's going to be lost because somebody else will replace TikTok. It's really more of the archival library that I started to create for myself that I can reference back. And, I also come from the creative world, right? I want to know how to do something quicker, easier, how could use generative imaging to help with my storytelling. And I learned that from AI, from TikTok on the tutorials of People AI. And that was everybody from just how somebody wants to redesign their sneaker to, right, or showing how to build a brand. And that to me is also fascinating. Someone who still enjoys using design software, right? I'm still an artist and a designer, and that's part of my skill set. So even advancing those tool sets of mine, right? I learn new things in Photoshop every day. In my Sydney, I don't make a living using Photoshop, but it's another one of my tool sets to help me with my business, and I can just do that much quicker, right? The same way someone knows Excel by the back of the hand, right? I have my programs to use. And I have my thoughts about generative AI as a piece of art, but I do believe that it's great as a tool set for mindset, for visioning, right? To help you tell that story. And when I was starting to put together a new concept and an RFP, I made a conscious choice personally to say, I'm going to use AI and ChatGPT for this entire project. I have 8 months to put it together. And I wanted to use, and part of using AI was part of the response of the RFP, because I wanted to show how AI and predictive analysis and understanding data and taking in information, public data information from New York City, a lot of the research, I had a lot of white papers. I wanted to synthesize them together. I wanted to add my team's background to it, synthesize it together. So I used it as a learning curve because I wanted the solutions. And what, everything from understanding what prompts to do in, but then how to keep building on it and referencing back, even uploading my own deck to start having conversations with myself. I learned that on AI. I didn't learn that on somebody's 8-week course tutorial on how to use AI. And then one of the first things I want to go a little bit out of my realm is I had a colleague, we do projects together, and he had a project that they were converting from cannabis to something else, and they didn't know what the something else was.
Like
and just from the facility itself, and just through some research, trends, using a little bit of AI, with location, we honed in on podcast studios, entertainment studios, things of that nature, not just as a service, because that's also a burgeoning business. It was next to companies, things like that.
Yeah.
He didn't even know where to start with a pro forma. So I just started to gather some information, right, based on certain square feet, what equipment, something on another, just use a reference, a comp, if you would, inputted that into AI on what we were trying to accomplish. Not only did it put the cash flow analysis, it literally first started by pricing the equipment. How much square feet, how much construction materials you might need, things that we know we can do. But for someone who's an asset manager, someone who's in facilities or construction management, who wants to just have to put that together, could that be just that much quicker? A client calls, could you have that ready in 10 minutes rather than let me get back to you in 2 days? It's just another tool to trade for, right?
If we're talking about a few years ago, at least.
To the same thing, I was doing a proposal for a project, and just part of my proposal, I took the BOV that was part of the information given to me. I put into AI, and it came up with 4 renderings, and I used that for the cover of my proposal. And they wanted to use that for the rendering, and I said, I don't think you should, but this is how I created it, and we can use it for visioning sessions, because they didn't understand maybe what they wanted to do. So again, just another arrow in the quiver, another tool set. And I used it everything from RFP writing to those to creating decks, and now to the point where renderings are expensive, right? And now if you and I have an idea and we're in a meeting, I can literally on my iPhone literally put it in and be like, "Is that what we were talking about?" So it just uses part of the storytelling process and the visioning process, and maybe that could be used as part of the business development process, the sales process, whatever part of the industry you're in. And that's exciting. Back to the relevance even of real estate, that's also exciting. What's someone who's formulating a company now that's never had an experience in an office, right? How do we stay relevant to that company, that mindset, that entrepreneur? But then how do we create a whole new programmatic of real estate that now we can literally think beyond the beyond? Right? We can lean into work from home, right? All the things hub and spoke, right? I do believe in offices, but what does the office mean? So I'm getting away from the AI, but again,
It's
right?
not just all about AI. It's about just these tools that help us think in a way
That's
that is
that's
beyond
exactly what it
the scope
is.
of what we are used to, beyond the scope of what, you know, we expect, what other people expect, and help not just us, but like you said, like help bring vision to others, help bring that storytelling. And it's interesting because you're making me think of a couple of influencers on TikTok that I similarly, like, I'm on TikTok not because I'm doing dances. Nobody expect that from my TikTok page, but because I am able to really understand what's happening in the world. I am able to understand how a person in college is starting a multi-million-dollar brand with potentially millions of followers on TikTok, and that person is now the CEO who's responsible for an office space, and half the office space is just being used to try on outfits that they're selling or do funny TikToks, or, you know, maybe they're dressing up almost ironically in suits and ties and things like that because it's getting views and it's engaging their audience. I mean, it is so interesting, and everybody has their own flavor and how they did it, but there's a level of almost some of them are putting on characters, right? And they become this character in order to create a business and sell the product. Some of them are just really being super vulnerable. They're being very authentic to who they are as an individual, and that's what's attracting people. There are so many businesses that you just would never think would traditionally be like, you know, we in real estate we think of what is it, the Tammy tenants, like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, we think of who we expect to be the tenant, the bank, the technology company, the media, this one, that one. Gone are the days. Gone are the days. You have an army of young people who are making millions and millions and millions of dollars online, doing so many unique and creative things. And that's our next generation of consumers. If we're talking about who's
Uh,
consuming the product, the space. And it's incredible. It's incredible to watch how creative people can be on TikTok, and the nature of their business is so different, you know. So I find it fascinating. And it's funny because I pushed back on joining some of these platforms at first because I'm like, that's not really for me. But then you realize that people that are, for the most part, 25 years and younger are using TikTok more than they're going to go to a search engine like Google to learn things, to, you know, search for things, maybe YouTube, right? So that's where people are consuming information. That's where they're finding information. And the information is not the information that you're finding on Google. It's a whole new world of what you could potentially be learning. So, you know, I think it's important to be on these platforms to really open our eyes and see, and just get rid of that stigma of, oh, I'm gonna have a TikTok account, or I'm gonna, you know, spend some time on YouTube because I see my son or daughter like can't get off YouTube and they watch all this like crazy stuff on YouTube. I'm not that person, but you need to be that person. We all need to be that person because this is where the world is happening.
Listen, I think
Being
there's
able to
one.
blend reality is, you know, going to be more and more important. But
I have two schools of thoughts, but they all lead to the same place. You know, on one hand, you can see in real estate or wherever, you know, you go where your audience is, right? If I'm selling $100 million building, do I think that my buyer is going to be on TikTok? I might, on one hand, I might say no, but on the other hand, I would say, doesn't matter. Go for it. Because it's just putting that content out there, and you don't know
never
now
know who your buyer
because,
is going to be these
right?
days.
We have the opportunity to broadcast in ways we've never had before, right? The entry point is so much different. I listen to a lot of Gary Vee. I think he's amazing. And you know, talking about the commas, talking about, you know, and it's a lot of the similar mindset that Beyond and the orchestra, because for him, he's just saying there's no barrier, just go, right?
Yeah.
And what that, those are great mindsets to learn and to bring in. And that brought me to really getting into the sneaker culture. I'm
Sneaker
fascinated with it.
culture?
And I'll tell you how I think about that when it comes to real estate. And I've had this conversation with some investment sales brokers. When you're thinking about who's the next, in, you know, the next group or the next buyer or just that next pool that's coming to our, and a lot of this is just mindset from learning and listening. And, you know, what I find fascinating about the sneaker culture is what they're really learning. They found something that they're into, a product they're into. But what are they learning? Buying, selling, investing, seeking out a trend, seeking out what's hot, putting their research together. That's really interesting. So we have CoStar, we have 10X, we have all these platforms. And then there's a platform called SneakerX, where it's the exact same thing. And I find that fascinating. And there's comps, and they're able to and delve into that. That is, they're learning the concept of investing. Buy, hold, sell at a better price, get into things like that, do comps, go around. That skill set and mindset is going to be your next buyer of your next building.
Should we be recruiting like this young generation of population who's using
I think
SneakerX to be our next real estate developers?
I'm not recruiting them, but I get excited that if we look at the people that look at real estate just as the investment and their value to the world of real estate, that they're inherently being taught that, right? You know, they're going to be the ones that are going to invest in art. They're going to be the one that's going to invest in technology. They're going to understand maybe risk a little bit different. They're going to understand analysis a little bit different because it's within the subject they like. But as you grow and you learn and, 20, 30 years from now, what you learned young and that skill set that you're leaning into and the curiosity, that to me gets exciting, right? Same way, like I said, the next Mark Zuckerberg or the next person who has that idea. Do they, tenant brokers, I say to them all the time, the first question, why do you need an office? And what's great is you start with that and, because marketing is the question of why, right? So a lot of that comes through that too. That's also part of the mindset. And when you really can delve into that, if you're not just thinking about March 20 BC, you need space, rent space, lease space, move on. And you really start to think about it from the strategy side, right? What is the value? What are they trying to accomplish? I've had conversations where people say, how do you get people to the office? My answer is, what do you do on a Monday? What's Tuesday look like? What's Wednesday? What's Thursday? What's Friday? Wednesday might just be go to dinner, might just be team building, right? Those are those open mindsets. It's also why I think that, because I come from the event world. I come from the marketing world. I come from that. So how do you blend that, right? How do you use those mindsets or those strategies into just every day of life, right? And
great is challenging the why and asking that question where most people are almost, you might be offended as a tenant broker being like, what do you mean why do you need office? This is my livelihood. Of course we need office. Don't even ask me this question. But when you can open somebody's mind to really give a thoughtful answer, you might change their entire career.
100%. But that's also what I get excited about, the opportunity of the evolution of the real estate firms, brokerage firms, advisory firms. Different types of companies are coming together, right? Brokerage firms hiring architects hiring brokers. That's really interesting, right? We're also in a mindset where I'm in a part, I think, of where a lot of really great teams can now become their own brand. And we talk a lot about that, right? That's what I market the front of the jersey, but also the back of the jersey. That's just as much as important, right? When you're going around watching your Knick or your Ranger game, are you staring at Lady Liberty or you're looking for your favorite player? And we're seeing that a lot, right? We're seeing that a lot. But that also brings me to, is it marketers learning how to be brokers, or is it brokers learning how to be marketers? Or are we trying to find that balance, which then means, does that bring other types of people with different type of skill sets and mindset into our industry to add to that orchestra? And that to me is what it
how
was.
How can we make them comfy when they get here, right? And how can we make them comfy when they get here and make them feel like, they have value to bring, instead of feeling challenged and that they're not in the right place? Because
back to your question about XR, AR, VR. I went to an art school. I'm part of those alumni boards. I love being part of architecture conversations, things like that. Those are new tools of the trade, right? So now if you can bring that into the collegiate, right, into the educational realm, and they're starting to learn what AI means for real estate, what XR, right, an architect, a marketer, whatever it is. I mean, because now so many types of industry skills are coming into our industry. If we can give them that tool in that level, then once they come to the industry, to me, that's going to up level us. They're going to be like, I don't want Excel, I want X, right? I don't want a pen, I want a headset. I don't want a phone, I want a TikTok account. Who knows, right? It's just more tools of the trade. And it's okay with, making real estate, more what I call CPG, which, consumer product goods type of marketing, which it
Has
is,
to be. It
right?
is. It
It
is.
is, right? Even with retail, what does that mean? What is the integration?
Yeah.
I just read they're building a Costco underneath a new residence, which is for affordable housing. To me,
Oh,
that
right.
where people look at that as bad, I think that's amazing. Does that mean everybody could work
Interesting.
there, right? So that's what I think about the opportunity we have with real estate and technology and human in the era we're now. We're at zero, right? There's no trends anymore. We can create those trends, right?
Yeah. I like that.
And as Rick Rubin says, the audience doesn't know what they want until we give it to them, right?
So true. I love it.
Or if you watch the movie Air, right? A shoe
Yeah.
is not a shoe until we step into it. A building is just four walls until we step into it and tell everybody what that is. And I get excited for that because maybe the next office is really institutional. That's the way colleges, right? It's more about collaboration, things like
Yeah.
that. Look at 22 Vanderbilt. Look at One Penn Plaza. Keep going, right?
Guys, I
It's
need to
like,
talk to the audience because,
uh,
guys, if you, and I know a lot of people since COVID, I know a lot of us have felt beat up by this industry. If you read the news, if you're in the headlines, you can get really down really quickly. And if that's you feeling, complacent or down on your job, or you're just not sure about this industry anymore, you need a dose of Elliot. Not only you better be listening to this episode, but you need to be connecting with Elliot and let him help those neurons start to fire. It's one of the things I value most about our friendship is just being able to pick his brain, hear him chat every now and then, because there is endless opportunity. We sit in such an incredible position in this industry to create and to make real impact, not just, come to work and do our jobs and go home, but really make impact, influence change. And this is a person who I'm so glad you were able to chat with us today and bring a lot of that energy that it just pours out of you. And I know we could sit here for the next 2 hours and it would continue to pour out of you.
I'm
And
a little
that's
nervous. I feel like I'm holding back. I'm a little nervous.
well,
I
we're
feel like
gonna
I'm
have
holding
to come
back.
back and dive a little deeper into some directions that I know are most particular to you. But I just really wanted to get this first episode out there in a positive direction of how people can expand their thought process around what's possible in this industry, because it is endless and there are people like Elliot that exist in this space that are pushing, that are excited day after day, and it's rare. And it helps bring me back to that place. So if you guys are feeling that way, I hope you're going to listen to this episode. I hope you're going to connect with Elliot. I'm going to put his contact information in the description. But Elliot, how can people find you?
Elliot at esltns.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I have a great website. It really just takes you to my phone number. I 1+1 = 3. Let's get on a phone. Let's converse.
Make a
And
t-shirt, Beyond the Beyond. We have some t-shirts to make after this episode. If anyone
there's
wants to create some merch out of this episode, go for it. I thought we had a lot of amazing quotes from Elliot.
But I want to add on to Mariel. I find it is an exciting time in real estate. I really feel that we're in that generational shift, not just in the industry of players, but in the tool sets, in the relationships and design of buildings. Really exciting. I live in a world of repositioning, and that to me is exciting, right? From the home to the parking lot to the asset. Right. We talked about on a prep what's going on with Netflix now. That's pretty exciting. That's
Netflix told me actually building a whole mall, which I
right.
think is yeah. And
But
we can. I do want to do a follow-up episode
yeah,
specifically about retail, because you have so much unique information and insights and imagination, which is I think the key word out of this whole episode.
I'm excited to talk about that because we are putting together a new omni-channel, really blending the physical and the digital, and it really
When
just
you're ready to talk about it, we are ready for you.
I can't wait. But Mariel, this has been great. I think the best thing I can leave is that it is an exciting time in real estate. If there's an interest and a value, you are welcomed, and we're waiting for you, because really those blends really add to the solutions. There's always the staples of real estate, what the process is, what the roles are, and there's amazing people that are doing really well and what our industry is, but we're moving forward. And I know that what's in my brain, I will never see. I will not be on this planet to see, but if I can just lay a few more nuggets and make a little bit of impact, I love New York. I'm all about New York City, right? Instead of watching comic books when I was a little kid, I was reading all the Corcoran books. My father would bring it to me on the New York Times. I look at places around the world and I see how they're innovating. I used to get hired around the world in other tertiary cities, what's happening in New York. Now I'm going around the country saying what's happening in your city, right? New York has a different type of culture. And I think it's really exciting, especially with a lot of the repositioning, a lot of some of the issues that we're thinking about. And I think there's a lot more potential in New York to convert just to residential. And I'm excited to be part of those teams to see what that could become, and waiting for your audience and your listeners to come join us and come on that journey and that ride. So thank you so much for this.
Until next time. This was awesome.
This was great.